Kia ora, my name is Andy Hamilton, the co-founder of Manaaki, and we are doing something impromptu this morning, which came about really from a moment when I was at the Business Hall of Fame dinner celebrating some business icons in New Zealand, and this fine gentleman, Ulu, was being awarded as a Business Hall of Famer. And I sat next to his table, I heard his kōrero, and I was like, wow, I wonder if I reached out to him, would he come into Indigo and Manaaki and say hi? And he did. And then he's here. And then we just talked to him a little bit and we're like, wow, we got to get this on camera to share with the community. So Ulu, thank you. Welcome.
Gee, thanks.
I know, he didn't know he was coming in, but I tell you what, I wonder if he knew he was coming in by the shirt that he is wearing and the mana that he brings in. But one of the things we really want Ulu to share is this movement called the Theory of Constraints, which I heard in his talk. He's just helped us at Indigo and Manaaki think about that as it relates to our business. I seem to have lost two of my co-founders who've disappeared into other rooms to write their notes around what they're going to do. So, again, welcome.
Thank you.
What is the theory of constraints?
The theory of constraints is the concept and the mathematics behind it, that every complex system has one rate-limiting factor. And by rate limiting, the theory of constraints founder, Dr. Ellie Goldratt, who's, bless her soul, now passed away, by rate limiting step, Dr. Ellie Goldratt meant the one thing in that complex system, whether that complex system is a factory, or a traffic network, or a kitchen, or a software production company, or a software development company, the one thing that limits all the throughput in that organization or that system. And I think when we were talking earlier, I said, do you know, everybody knows the 80-20 rule. In 100 things, there are 20 things that really count, that limit the production of the whole system of 100 production centers or 100 items that are being considered. There are 20 things that really count. And my question then was, what if we could find in that 20%, or 20 things out of 100, what if we could find the one thing that really matters?
The one thing.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be better to spend our last dollar and our last minute fixing that one thing or improving that one thing, rather than trying to spend our last minute and last dollar on 20 things? And of course the answer logically is, do it on the one thing. Well, that one thing, for anyone who's listening or watching, is what Dr. Ellie Goldratt called the constraint. And there is a process to find that one thing. That's what the theory of constraints concept and mathematics shows, and that's what the theory of that's why the theory of constraints comes with a set of tools, critical thinking tools.
When did you come across the theory of constraints?
1994, which is last century.
When you were a young man?
When I was a young man, physically. And I haven't changed spiritually or mentally.
So 1994 you came across it. And did you go, wow, this is what I've been looking for?
I did. Because since I was a child, I've loved reading fairy stories. Because as a Pacific Islander, as a Samoan, born in Samoa last century, I'm sure I was no different from any other Pacific Island infant or toddler in Tonga or Fiji or Niue or Tokerau or Cook Islands. All toddlers are told fairy stories that are rooted in the culture of that specific nationality or ethnicity. And I was no different. So I went from the Samoan mythology to church just down the road from where I was born in Apia, where I learned all about the Christian, some people would say, mythology and scripture. And when we came to New Zealand, I then started reading English mythology, which moved on to science fiction, which moved on to science. And so I am an avid reader even now, using Kindle rather than physical books. And one day I came across this book called The Goal.
The Goal.
The Goal. Goal, written by a man called Dr. Eli Goldratt. And at that time, when I bought that book from Whitcoulls, bless you Whitcoulls, and the Pascoe family now, it was April 1994, and I had been looking for a way to improve the output or the throughput of my software development business and software sales business called Cogita. And this is a business that I started when I was still just starting the Masters of Business Administration program degree at Otago University in 1983, 84. And for that 11 years from the time I started to 1994 when I bought The Goal, I always wondered why I couldn't scale the business. And why the extremely smart people who joined my company and I together couldn't seem to build a business that was huge in sales and huge in profit and huge in top line, which is revenues. And it just seemed to be the case that it didn't matter how many people we added to our staff, we never got any more profitable. And one day at Whitcoulls, I came across this book advertised on the back of a Forbes magazine. Somebody had put the magazine in backwards. And as I was leaving Whitcoulls, I turned back to see if I'd left anything, and I saw this advertisement on the back of a Forbes magazine. And it was a generational black family's business making furniture somewhere in the United States. And the title of the advertisement was, "The Goal Saved My Business." So I went back and I thought, saved my business? I wonder if that included expanding the business or fixing the business. So I went back and picked up the Forbes magazine, read the article, and it talked about this book called The Goal, written by someone called Dr. Eli Goldratt. So I thought, I bought everything else in Whitcoulls. I'll take this to the counter and ask the lady behind the counter, do you have any copies of this book somewhere? Because it's not on the shelf. And she said, just give me a second and I'll check. And she said, I've got 10 copies in our Queen Street branch. So I went back the next day, bought the copy that the lady had got from the Queen Street branch, went back to the office, spent the rest of the night at the office reading it. In the morning, I contacted everyone in my company then in the 3 offices and said, be here next week. I've got a surprise for you. Everyone turned up. And Whitcoulls by then had shipped 2 or 3 crates of The Goal. And I gave everyone a copy and I said, you got a week to read this or find another job. That was April 1994.
Wow.
And by December 1994, I had personally retired because of the changes that we'd made in our business as a result of The Goal.
So before you get to the how, does the theory of constraints, because you know Cogita is a successful business, you know, large, you know, and it's a software development company. Can the theory of constraints apply to any organisation of any size or scale?
Yes. Remember that the theory of constraints, as Dr. Eli Goldratt articulated it, is that every complex system has a rate limiting step.
A rate limiting step.
So that step limits the rate of the total throughput or output of the system.
Yeah.
It's not that there aren't other bottlenecks. There are many bottlenecks in a system, but only one makes the difference to all the other bottlenecks.
So how do you do, like, so if we take like a, you know, like a business that's sitting here going, wow, I should look into this. They're going to buy the book, you know, they're going to look around on YouTube and they're going to go, right, I want to apply this. Can they do that themselves or do they have to find a, you know, an expert to come in, consultant?
Really a bit of both.
Okay.
Because what we did in my company in Cogita back in 1994, after I gave out all the books, we had no help. There was no one in Australasia that we knew who had read The Goal or was applying The Goal.
Yeah.
So we applied what we thought the principles were
Yeah.
to what we were doing in business in different aspects of the business, whether it was sales or software development or customer support or documentation. I just said to everyone, if you don't apply the principles of this book, find another job. So everyone did what they could. And everyone was an amateur theory of constraints practitioner. Towards the end of that 1994 year, I persuaded my wife that we should go and get some training, if training were available. So in the back of the book was an address in Maidenhead in the UK. So I rang the number in Maidenhead and said, Uru here, can we meet with the boss? And the boss was a man called Oded Cohen, who was a personal friend of Dr. Ellie Goldred's. And Oded Cohen's job in the, it was called the AGI, Avraham Goldred Institute. Oded Cohen's job was to build the Avraham Goldred Institute business of the theory of constraints teaching and training in Europe, whereas Dr. Goldred was doing that in the Americas, where he was based in Massachusetts. So I made an appointment on the phone, and my wife and I bought tickets late in December 1994. We jumped on a plane, flew to Heathrow, got off the plane, caught the train to Maidenhead, found ourselves in what looked like the countryside. Everything was green. Caught a cab from the train station to what looked like a castle. Walked into this big building that looked like a castle, and there was a single desk there with a woman at the desk. She said, can I help you? I said, yeah, my name's Ulu, I'm here to see Oded. She said, oh, really? I said, why? She said, because he's just started, it was Monday. So we flew out on a Sunday of Auckland, and we arrived on the Monday, I think. And she said, no, Odin's just started a week-long training class. I said, oh, we can wait. She said, he's just started a training class. I said, we can wait. She said, no, it's a week long. I said, well, can you tell him we're here? She said, not really. She said, where are you from? I said, Auckland. And she said, Auckland, where's that? I said, Auckland, New Zealand. She said, oh my God. I said, yeah, I rang you 2 weeks ago. She said, oh, I made a mistake. I thought she had written down some local place.
Did you join the class?
No, she said, look, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize you travelled from Auckland, New Zealand. I'll go and interrupt him. So Oded Cohen came out and apologised for the mistake and spent, about an hour with us.
Wow.
And showed us the next book that Ellie Goldred had written. But the reason that I say that is that we were looking for training.
Yeah.
Formal training. And one thing led to another, and Oded said, no, I'm the wrong person to talk to. You really need to go to the States to talk to a lady called Dee Keenan, who's another partner who looks after the Americas, who has got all the training materials that would suit you if we opened a new leg of business in the Pacific.
Yeah.
So in February, I went with, not with my wife, but with someone else, and we met Dee Keenan, who said, okay, well, in a couple of months, I'll come over and start the formal training. And the formal training took a month at our offices in Manukau.
Yeah, it's quite deep.
Yeah, and then she came back a couple of times, and it was $1 million for that training.
Wow.
Over the next 12 months.
That's courage and belief.
Well, you realise many things in hindsight. So I did not realise that I had retired in December 1994 until 5 years later. People kept saying to me, you don't seem to do anything. That's what I thought. Oh, that's because I stopped doing things in 1994. Same thing with this thing about the $1 million.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have all the $1 million at the time. So we were paying off that $1 million over about 3 years to the Goldred Institute. And one of the things that we did as a result of that was to start a new company that focused on theory of constraints.
Consulting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that company taught our core business, Cogita, despite the resistance from Cogita people, taught our Cogita people how to practice and how to apply the tools of the theory of constraints. Now, one of the interesting things about our experience is we found a constraint in the teaching process.
Ah.
Yeah, so we decided it doesn't need to take 6 months. It can only take we can do it in a week.
Wow. A week.
So contrary to everything that we were told by the Goldred Institute, and we love you, Goldred Institute, I still love you, Goldred Institute, when you see this, we developed something called Black Belt in Thinking.
Black belt in thinking.
And black belt in thinking was developed by this company called Viago,
Yeah.
Viago, which is it's a sort of a, I would use the word rip-off, but it's a sort of patent on Star Trek. Well, we are going where no other company has gone before intellectually. And that company, Viago, became the company that helped many of the blue chip companies in New Zealand and Australia
Wow.
with their businesses, especially when China became a competitor.
Wow.
And it's that company, Viago, whose intellectual property my wife later sold to Richard founder, Richard, thank you and well done, of WiseTech Corporation, when
Wow.
he did his IPO back in 2016.
So if you're like well, I understand if you're like a $10 million business owner and you've got, 30, 40 staff, you can be quite systematic, logical about how do we improve our business. And this might be an area that they go and they'll get consultants and, and clarity, and they'll go down that. But if you're like a $500,000 business,
Yeah.
like what would be your advice and guidance to the husband and wife team that are going, we're there, we're happy, but we're just busy and we can't make the next step, how they might think of this theory of constraints to apply it into their situation? Like, what would you advise them to do, short of asking you to mentor them, which is not possible given how busy you are?
Yeah, I'm not busy.
I know you're retired, but when I look at like the habitat things you do, the church work you do, the pro, not the pro care, the
Alliance Whole Plus,
yeah,
DHO.
like plus your own interests. But I've always said, like I say with Monty, great sports people have time.
Yes.
You have time.
Yes.
Good, but you create time in your life.
Yes.
And that's important for you, right? And that's what probably gives you the aura, by the way, of wisdom and humour together, right? It's like it's pretty awesome. But you're the husband and wife team in Whangarei, you've got a $500,000 business, and you're going, right, we're going to buy the goal. Now, what do? Because,
Well, we live in the age of the internet.
yeah,
In 1994, there was basically no internet.
yeah,
And many companies still did not even have email in 1994.
yeah.
And lawyers did not do business on the internet.
Tell me about it. I was a lawyer back then.
Yep. So lawyers would send documentation, despite the fact that they could do PDFs then, if they had email, and send them by email.
I know this is off-piste, but do you know what happened to me in those years?
No.
I was learning how to write letters. I was a junior lawyer, and there was this guy called Rob Sinclair, who was my senior,
Yeah.
and so he would say, go away and write your letter, and then bring it to me. And then he'd bring the red pen out. It was the most painful experience, but it was the most incredible guidance he gave me around how to collect one's mind to write a succinct, purposeful letter. I didn't like it at the time, but he was unbelievably patient. But now we're getting off piste, so I'm back.
No, we're not getting off piece. What you are experiencing is the core of learning,
Yeah,
and that is learning by doing.
yeah, not preaching.
Correct. And learning by doing is not something that mechanics and plumbers do. It is consistent, and it is the primary cause of elite cognitive achievement. So Brin and his co-founder of Google, they had no idea what a internet scraper was. They had no idea what a rating scale was for HTML sites. That's why they had to stop their PhDs and learn by doing with people that they hired in the early days of Google to do what we now take for granted.
Yeah.
That's why we no longer need encyclopedias, because those guys did the learning by doing that enabled mankind to search. And that learning by doing is what is necessary in the theory of constraints.
So take this husband and wife team from Whangarei.
Yeah.
So they go onto the internet, they
Yep.
search theory of constraints.
Yep. And they will come across the goal.
Okay,
Then they must search theory of constraints for help.
for help.
Yep. And there are a number of organizations and individuals who say they can help.
Yeah.
And my number is 021 983 457. So that if you are watching this and you go on the internet and you find an organization that says they can help, send me a text and I'll tell you whether they really are going to be able to help you or not.
Wow.
So for the husband, if there's a husband and wife team or anyone like that,
Yeah.
here's my encouragement to you. The theory of constraints is the scientific method wrapped up in a love story called The Goal, where there is a husband and wife. The husband is a young guy who wants to really make his name in business, and he's employed by a large manufacturing concern with operations, manufacturing plants all over the United States. One of those manufacturing plants is not doing well. It has a backlog of orders, customer orders, and the customers are getting really mad because they're saying, why are we waiting weeks?
Yeah.
So the employers of this young man say to him, if you want to make a name for yourself, we'll post you to this place, this factory of ours that's having problems. If you can fix it in 3 months, you can stay on and you get promoted. But otherwise, look for another job. And that's what the goal is about, and how the theory of constraints is surfaced by that young graduate, business graduate, and his mentor back at university. Now,
Imagine, do you know what I think about?
yeah,
I think about that husband and wife finding the one,
yeah,
and the sheer joy that it gives them. That's what kind of drives, because that's an extraordinary
Yeah.
insight moment.
yeah,
Because I know what it's like when you're running the business. You've just mentored us upstairs, and I mean, you didn't tell us the answer.
yeah.
I think you did, maybe. Did you tell us the answer?
No, because I wasn't mentoring you. I don't believe in mentoring.
What
Sorry,
did you say was our constraint at Manaki?
Sales.
Sales. Yeah. And we responded, courage, didn't we?
Yes,
Courage to ask for people to pay us.
correct. And then I remember I drew the distinction between customers
And
pay
users,
money,
yeah.
and consumers.
Yeah.
And consumers are very influential on what customers do. And so every business should have a plan both for its customers and its consumers. But most businesses only focus on customers,
Yeah.
which is, again, a problem because consumers are a great influence on the constraint. Oh, you didn't know that? Well, you do now.
I'm a bit troubled. I don't know whether I'm going to sleep tonight. Do you sleep a lot?
No,
You don't.
I hardly sleep.
Why?
I'm thinking about too much stuff. I'm trying to figure out how the cause and effect of it works.
It's very fascinating. One of the things through the story you told about the Google people and also your own experiences is that the putting yourself in the position of getting the opportunity for patterns to come
Yes.
gives you the opportunity to make a leap forward.
Yeah.
Is that driven by curiosity or is that driven by paranoia?
Well, paranoia is a condition of anxiety.
Yeah.
Curiosity is a condition of anticipation. So they're both parts of the same parts of the dictionary, A for anxiety and A for anticipation, but one has more negative effects than the other.
Were you always full of anticipation?
Yes.
Never
I'm not
anxiety?
an anxious person.
You're not an anxious person?
No.
You laugh a lot?
Well, if you knew what I knew about life, you'd kill yourself laughing. It's a lot simpler than we think. We don't really have to be geniuses. We just have to figure out the one thing that matters.
Yeah.
And if we only got $1 and 1 minute left, spend it on that.
I was speaking on email to an amazing co-founder who, yesterday, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying, but she was troubled by some things, right, that were happening in the business. And my advice to her was, does that, I know that irritates you, but does it help you get forward? Because any moment that you're focusing on something that doesn't help you is just, a distraction. So it's painful, ignore it, put it away. I'm not going to tell you what to do, I said, but just think, does this help us get to the goal? And I was doing that even before I knew about the theory of constraints.
Yes. Yeah. And that, while we're talking, there are two simple tools that anyone can use, including a couple in Whangarei who have got a business that they want to
Yep.
to build. There are two tools that anyone can use from the armory of Theory of Constraints tools. So the first is called a current reality analysis.
Current reality analysis.
Yeah, the current reality analysis tool. And it is simple and it is easy to use. It is based on the statement. I or we will never successfully do X, Y, Z. X, Y, Z is an objective, so it could be build my business from $500,000 to $750,000 turnover with 20% net profit after tax in the next 12 months.
So you say, I will never do that.
Yeah, I will never successfully, not do it, successfully.
Yeah.
And successfully is different for different people.
Yeah.
That's why successfully has to be in there.
Yeah.
So I will never successfully do blah, 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 because. Make a list of all the becauses.
Oh, the becauses.
Yeah. Those becauses tend to be obstacles.
Yeah.
Now, this is the inversion process that Dr. Stephen Covey first articulated back in the 1990s, where he said in the 7 habits, one of the 7 habits is to start with the end in mind. Work backwards from what we want. So, I will never successfully, blah, 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 is whatever the work backwards from what we want is.
Yeah.
Because. Then make a list of the becauses, then make a list of the things that resolve the becauses.
How to resolve those.
Yeah.
Yep.
Make sure, then get someone else to check it. You know, you can do this in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Get someone else to check, or if even better, if it's husband and wife, the husband and wife do their own lists.
Yeah, that's cool. And then compare.
Combine the lists.
Yeah.
Don't compare them, combine the lists. Then ask each other, what do you mean by this?
So that's the current reality.
Yep. Then make a list of what will resolve them.
Yeah.
Then
is that the second element?
That's the second step in current reality. Third, on post-it notes, write those solutions, partial solutions.
Yeah.
And sequence them on the dining room table.
Yeah.
First, middle, early, start, middle, and late.
Start means do it now.
Yep.
Middle means
sometime next.
And soon. Late means
towards the end.
Towards the end of what?
Towards the end of that process.
Wow.
That's the first tool.
Okay.
Current reality. That's how to work out what really matters.
I might do a template after this talk.
Yep. And
put it with it.
And the second thing is, in order to do one of these things, these partial solutions, to implement them, we have to have a tool for knowing what to do.
Yeah.
So we've got a solution, and one of them might be increase the number of prospects in the business.
Yeah.
So, you know, a post-it note with increase the number of prospects on the business is good because we know what to do. We know that that's what we should achieve. But what do we do to achieve it?
The how?
The how. Here's the how. It's called a prerequisites analysis. The prerequisites analysis is, I beg your pardon, I've just done the prerequisites analysis. The first tool, the current reality analysis, is when I think about X, Y, Z, it really bothers me that.
Okay, so take me through that. So when I think about...
When I think about my business struggling at $500,000 to go to the next stage, it really bothers me that.
Okay.
One,
about
2, 3,
all these
4,
things. Yep.
Then make the opposites.
Yep.
And then sequence those.
Yep.
And you will find out that there are 1 or 2 things that cause all those things.
Yeah.
That's what identifies what really matters.
Okay, so that's the current reality.
Current reality. And the next one is, once you find out what really matters, you've got to fix that.
Yeah.
To fix that, you have to know what to do.
Yeah.
So you take what you have to fix and say, I will never successfully do this because. That's your becauses list. Then you're the opposite of becauses, then the post-it notes, sequence, then you're done. Those 2 simple tools.
You can do that in a couple of days.
You can do that in an hour.
If you focus.
If you practice.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I implore people who start to apply the tools, the Theory of Constraint tools, practice it on stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's good.
So you get better on what does matter.
Can you practice it on your kids?
Yes. I will never successfully help to raise 4 granddaughters. God bless them. Because.
What about charities like churches or?
Same.
Have you applied it to your church?
Uh-huh.
Do they appreciate it?
To all the Salvation Army Otahu core church members and my pastors, Dr. Major Tom and Major Heather, when you watch this, yes, I do apply the Theory of Constraints in the things that we do at church.
Do you feel blessed?
All my life I've been blessed.
Yeah.
I've been blessed by parents who loved me despite the fact that they always argued about what was important. And I've been blessed by being a person who refuses to be told what to do. And there's a consequence for everything.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, so I used to get really smacked hard as a child by my father. Because I wouldn't never do what he told me. And to all the parents who are watching this, you know, if you have a child like me, just maybe try something else.
Actually, funnily enough, you know, and I'm one of 4 boys, and you know, one of us in the 4 was different to the other 3, and I always used to say to Mum, you can't bring him up like you brought the rest of us up. And she's like, no, I have to be fair to everyone. And I was like, no, Mum, you don't. We're different. But it's quite hard as a parent to recognise that when you're in that moment, right? And then the arguments that go between mum and dads when, you know, they're like, da-da-da-da. But it's, you know, I just wanted to say, because I said to you that, you know, I said it would be half an hour and you said, oh, I'm sure we can use the theory of constraints to shorten it down. I just wanted to say that thank you for actually being so generous and being so open about this, because it is a gift. Not only have you given Pat, me and Rach a gift by coming to spend time here, but you've also, I think, you know, sometimes when a wise business person spends time with people, you can create that anxiety, right? Because you will identify the issues or challenges and make people think. But I like the fact that you created the anticipation for us around the opportunity, because the tools help, because we're all looking for the one.
Yes.
We're looking for the 1 in 100. Yeah. It never stops, because I assume, you know, once you do 2-3 years of this, there will be another constraint that'll come.
Yes, the constraint moves.
Yeah, moves.
Yeah.
All over the place, like a solution.
And the great thing about the theory of constraints is that you can apply it on itself. It's recursive.
Now my head is starting to spin.
Well, it's the test of the truth.
Yeah.
When we apply the truth to the truth, does it turn out to be a lie? Because that's bad.
Yeah.
And obviously we know that it wasn't the truth.
Do you laugh so much because you know that gives people joy?
I know that it gives people joy, but that's not why I laugh. I laugh because I experience joy in the moments that I'm doing things, and because of the realization of this truth. This is out of Ecclesiastes chapter 2, you know, in the Old Testament. Yeah. Everything is vanity. The things that we think are really important, they are not important. What we think about ourselves as being important, it's not important. There are things that are way more important than that. Yeah. And to live in that spirit, and to have that confirmed every minute of my life, that the stuff that I think is really important, it's not important. There are things that are, you know, that's a real wake up every minute of my life. Well,
you are blessed, and thank you. Thank you for actually sharing. Thank you for being open to the challenge when we said to you upstairs, we want to get this on camera, and it is a gift that you've given to us in the Manaaki community. And so I just really do want to say thank you very much, Ulu. And
bless everyone here.
Bless everyone here. So that's us for today. Thank you, Ulu, for everything that you do for the community.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.